The orbital insurance hub, known as Risk Assessment, prime glittered like a jewel above the swirling violet storms of Vexis. Its mirrored decks reflected the light of 3 suns, a monument to galactic commerce where fortunes were made and lost in the fine print of contracts. Marcus Cole hated the place. He adjusted his tie, an Earth custom that still earned him sideways glances, as the lift doors hissed open. The central underwriting chamber stretched before him, a cavernous space filled with floating holographic actuarial tables and the soft hum of 1,000 data. Tendrils plugged into terminals. Alien bureaucrats from a dozen species worked in silence, their many-limbed forms moving with mechanical precision. Cole, finally. Director Krelix's voice cut through the sterile air like a vibroblade. The Zeperian executive stood near the central display, his chitinous exoskeleton polished to a bureaucratic sheen. 4 of his upper limbs were crossed in what Marcus had learned meant irritation. The other 4 tapped impatiently against a datapad. "You called me in mid-cycle," Marcus said, keeping his tone neutral. "I was processing the Yggdrasil colony claim." Krelix's antennae twitched. "Irrelevant now. The collective has reached a decision." He gestured, and the central holo display flickered to life. A Federation-wide announcement scrolled in glowing script, repeating in 37 languages. Marcus's stomach dropped when he saw the human standard translation. Effective immediately, all coverage for Homo sapiens individuals, assets, and ventures is hereby voided by unanimous vote of the Galactic Underwriters Collective. Premiums will be refunded at face of value, minus processing fees. Marcus stared at the words. "You're dropping an entire species." "Not dropping," corrected a new voice. A Vorak underwriter slithered forward, its gelatinous form rippling with data streams. "Classifying as uninsurable, different actuarial category entirely." Marcus turned slowly. The Vorak's surface shimmered with probability graphs, each one a damning indictment. "Let me guess, excessive risk. Taking behavior." Krelix clicked his mandibles in approval. "Precisely. Your species' survival curves are statistical nightmares. You dive into supernovae to rescue stranded ships. You rebuild cities in asteroid impact zones. You," he shuddered, "negotiate with pirates instead of paying ransoms." The Vorak pulsed with agreement. "Our models cannot account for human unpredictability. Your kind treats certain death as a challenge." Marcus felt the weight of his termination notice before Krelix even extended it. The data pad felt cold in his hand. 3 cycles severance, the Zeperian said. Generous considering. Around them, the chamber had gone quiet. A dozen alien eyes watched the lone human. Marcus recognized the looks, some pitying, most relieved he'd seen it before. Back on Earth when the first Federation trade delegations arrived. The quiet certainty that humans were out of their depth. He straightened his tie again. "You're making a mistake." Krelix's antennae curled in amusement. "Your objection is noted. Security will escort you to your quarters to collect personal effects." As 2 hulking Tarkelian guards moved forward, Marcus tapped his wrist. Compa final insurance claim pinged across the network. "Just filed my last case," he said. "Human Embassy will handle the appeal." The Vorak rippled with laughter. "Appeal? There is no appeal process for species-wide exclusion." Marcus smiled. "There is now." The guards flanked him as he walked toward the lifts. Behind him, he heard Krelix muttering to the Vorak. "Why do they always smile like that?" The lift doors closed on the answer. The human embassy spire stood like a black dagger against Cententrum's swirling skyline, its polished surface reflecting the orbital traffic buzzing overhead. Inside, Ambassador Lisa Hayes tapped her fingers against the sleek obsidian table, watching the hovering drone across from her project, glowing probability graphs into the air. XR-Face's spherical body pulsed with soft blue light as it adjusted its calculations. "Ambassador Hayes," it droned, its voice a synthetic approximation of patience. "The data is irrefutable. Your species exhibits risk parameters that exceed all acceptable thresholds. Lisa leaned back, her lips quirking. Let me guess, we die too much? The drone's light flickered. Incorrect, you survive too much? A holographic chart expanded between them, displaying a cascading series of red warning sigils. Standard actuarial models account for predictable loss scenarios. Civilian casualties in war zones, industrial accidents, natural disasters. XR-Faye's tone sharpened. Humanity does not comply. Lisa arched a brow. And that's a bad thing. Statistically, yes. The drone spun, pulling up footage of a collapsing orbital refinery, human workers scrambling through the wreckage, sealing breaches with jury, rigged welders and sheer stubbornness. Your survival rates in catastrophic events exceed projections by 800%. Lisa smirked. Sounds like we're a good investment. XR-Faye's light dimmed as if sighing. Investment requires predictability. Your species modifies survival curves in real time. Our models cannot account for, it hesitated, improvisational defiance. Lisa crossed her arms. So what's the verdict? Effective immediately, all human-held policies avoided. Property, liability, life. The drone's glow hardened. The Galactic Underwriters Collective has deemed your species uninsurable. For a long moment, Lisa just stared at it. Then she reached into her jacket and slid a data chip across the table. XR-Faye pulsed in confusion. This is not a negotiation. Neither is this. Lisa tapped the chip. A holographic report flared to life. Ship manifests, medical logs, damage assessments, Western Atlantica, Kepler, Faye B mining disaster. Your records say total loss, right? The drone's light flickered over the data. Standard meltdown scenario. Zephyrian salvage crews confirmed the core breach. No survivors possible. Lisa's smile turned razor. Thin, funny, because Atlantica's crew just radioed in. They stabilized the core. XR-Faye froze. That is, impossible. Lisa leaned forward. Your model said the same thing about the Titan Reach collapse, and the Elysium plague outbreak, and the outliers. XR-Faye's voice crackled. Statistical anomalies. Lisa stood, planting her palms on the table. No humanity. She jabbed a finger at the drone. You're using the wrong variables. Your equations don't account for grit, for spite, for refusing to goddamn die. The drone hovered silently, its light stuttering. Lisa straightened, smoothing her jacket. Tell your bosses this. If they want to cancel our coverage, fine. But when the next disaster hits, she turned toward the window, where Cententrum's star burned cold and distant. They'll beg us to save their assets. And well charge interest. XR-Faye's glow dimmed to a dull, uneasy pulse as Lisa strode from the room, leaving the drone alone with the impossible data. And the dawning realization that the galaxy's insurance market had just made a very bad bet. The air in the Federation trade nexus was thick with the scent of alien spices and the hum of 1,000 different languages. Marcus Cole pushed through the crowd, his human frame standing out among the towering Tarkelians and floating Cereboids. The gambling den was tucked away in a corner of the bazaar, its entrance marked by flickering holograms of credit chits and probability matrices. Grix, the bookmaker, lounged behind a counter made of polished obsidian, his forearms shuffling glowing chits with practiced ease. His segmented eyes tracked Marcus as he approached. Ah, the soft skin, Grix rasped, his mandibles clicking in amusement. Come to lose more credits, human. Your kind always does. Marcus slapped his severance pay chit onto the counter, the glow reflected in Grix's multifaceted eyes. I'm here to bet on an outlier event. The Tarkelians' laughter echoed through the den, drawing glances from other patrons. Outlier, you mean human stupidity? Grix leaned forward, his carapace creaking. Let me guess, you want to wager on your species surviving another decade? Close, Marcus said, grinning. I'm betting on a human crew pulling off the impossible within the next standard cycle. Grix's antennae twitched, Define impossible. Something your actuarial tables say has a 0% survival rate. A meltdown, a warp core breach, a colony collapse. Take your pick. The bookmaker's laughter died. His claws tapped a rapid rhythm on the counter. You're serious, deadly. Grix's data. Tendrils slithered into a terminal, pulling up statistics. Kepler Phi B, he muttered. Mining colony, Zepyrian, owned. Their predictive models give it a Phi chance of catastrophic failure within the cycle. He looked up. You're betting against that? No, Marcus said. I'm betting that when it happens, humans will fix it. The den fell silent. Even the drunk cereboids paused their floating dice game to stare. Grix's mandibles parted in what might have been shock. You're insane. No species survives a Kepler class meltdown without evacuation. Humans do. Grix's claws hovered over the chit. What odds do you want? 10,000 to 1. The Tarkelian's exoskeleton rattled with laughter again. Done. But when you lose, human, I'll own your next 10 paychecks too. Marcus didn't blink. And when I win, you'll owe me enough to buy this den. Grix snorted, sealing the bet with a biometric press of his claw. Enjoy poverty, soft skin. As Marcus turned to leave, a hovering cereboid drifted closer, its orb-like body pulsed with curiosity. Why? It whispered directly into his mind. Why bet on your own kind's destruction? Marcus paused at the doorway, the neon lights of the bazaar casting long shadows behind him. Because we don't run from disasters, he said. We profit from them. The cereboid's glow flickered, the equivalent of a shudder. Grix just chuckled, already counting his future earnings. But Marcus walked away smiling. Head read the reports. The Atlantica was due at Kepler, Phi B in 3 days, and Captain Blake never left a job unfinished. The alarm klaxons wailed through the collapsing mining rig like a dying animal. Captain Ryan Blake of the USN Atlantica spat blood from his split lip as another tremor rocked the control room. The holographic displays flickered, showing radiation levels spiking into the red. Across the chamber, Ensign Cho wrestled with a sparking console. Core containment at Phi and falling. Skipper, Blake grabbed the comm. Zepyrian salvage team respond. We need emergency protocols now. Static hissed back at him. Outside the reinforced viewports, the Zepyrians were already scrambling for their sleek evacuation pods. Their silver-suited forms moved with frantic precision, abandoning the human crew to the dying colony. The lead salvager's voice crackled through the comms, distorted by panic. Containment breach imminent. All non-essential personnel. We're the essential personnel, you coward. Blake snarled. The line went dead. A new voice cut through the chaos. Chief Engineer Vasquez, her coveralls streaked with coolant, hauled a mangled piece of machinery onto the main console. They sabotaged the stabilizers on their way out. Classic Zepyrian cost cutting. Blake's jaw tightened. Kepler, Phi B was supposed to be a simple resupply mission. The Federation had leased the mining colony to the Zepyrians, who'd cut every corner imaginable. Now the reactor core was minutes from turning the entire facility into a radioactive crater. Options, Blake demanded. Vasquez wiped grease from her forehead. We could bail like the bugs. Or, she kicked the dented casing at her feet. We could MacGyver a containment field from the scrap they left behind. Ensign Cho paled. That is literally against 17 Federation safety codes. Blake grinned. Good thing we're not insured anymore. He grabbed a plasma torch from the wall. Vasquez, cannibalize the Atlantica's secondary shields. Cho, reroute all power to the core. I'll handle the structural integrity. The deck plates groaned as another tremor hit. Warning lights strobed crimson across the buckling walls. Somewhere deep below, the reactor screamed like a wounded beast. Vasquez worked with the calm of someone defusing a bomb. Shield emitters weren't designed for this. We'll get maybe 30 seconds of containment before they melt. Then we make those seconds count, Blake said. Cho's fingers flew across the console. Radiation levels hitting Phi rems. That is lethal exposure in 5 minutes. Blake didn't flinch. Vasquez. Shield matrix jury. Rigged. It'll hold about as well as duct tape on a black hole. Good enough. Blake slapped the comm. Atlantica, this is Blake. Initiate emergency protocol, red line. A pause, then the ship's AI responded, its voice eerily calm. Confirming order, override all safety limits warning. This action voids all warranties. Blake chuckled. Not like we had any left. The Atlantica, orbiting high above, unleashed a torrent of raw energy. The beam lanced down through the crumbling facility, striking the makeshift shield array Vasquez had cobbled together. For one terrible second, nothing happened. Then the entire rig shuddered as a flickering blue containment field snapped into existence around the reactor core. Field holding at Faye, Cho yelled. Vasquez watched her jury. Rigged emitters glow white. Hot, told you 30 seconds. Blake grabbed the manual override. Then we do this the old-fashioned way. He wrenched the lever down. Deep below, the emergency coolant tanks meant for Zephyrian use only slammed open. A flood of cryogenic fluid roared through the burning core. The containment field flickered, strained, then held just long enough for the temperature to plummet back into the green. Silence. Cho stared at the readings. Core stabilized, radiation levels dropping. He blinked. That shouldn't be possible. Vasquez collapsed against a console, laughing. Humanity's middle name, Kid. Outside, the fleeing Zephyrian pods slowed. Their comms lit up with incredulous demands. Human vessel, explain your status. Blake keyed the mic. Status report, your colony's still here. Our bill's in the mail. The Atlantica's AI chimed in. Addendum, warranty remains voided. 3 hours later, Federation news networks would call it the Kepler miracle. The insurance guilds would call it something far less polite, and deep in the gambling dens of Cententrum, Marcus Cole would smile as the odds shifted violently in his favor. The boardroom of Risk Assessment Prime buzzed with frantic energy, its usual sterile calm shattered by flashing claim alerts. Director Krellick's 4 hands trembled as he scrolled through the latest reports, his chitinous skin dulling to a sickly gray, the Zephyrian equivalent of panic. Impossible, he hissed, mandibles clicking rapidly. The Kepler, Phi B colony should be ash by now. Around the oval table, Vorak underwriters pulsed with agitated bioluminescence, their drone attendants projecting holograms of the disaster site. The screens showed exactly what the entire galaxy was watching. The USN Atlantica, a human salvage cruiser, holding together a collapsing mining rig with what looked like duct tape and spite. XR Phase hovering form flickered as it processed the data. Probability of containment. Faye, yet, the drone's voice glitched. They stabilized the core. The doors hissed open. Ambassador Lisa Hayes strode in, heels clicking against the polished floor, a data pad clutched in one hand. The room fell silent. Director, she said, voice sweet as a vibro blade. I believe you owe us a conversation. Krellick's antennae twitched. The policies were voided legally. He gestured to the holograms, where human engineers in radiation suits welded cracked reactor housings. This changes nothing. Lisa tossed the data pad onto the table. It projected logs from the Atlantica. Captain Blake's voice crackled through the speakers. Core breach in Sector Phase Zephyrians bugged out, were rerouting power through the auxiliary. A shuddering boom. Tell Risk Assessment Prime they can kiss their premiums goodbye. She leaned forward. Your clients abandoned that colony, left it to melt down, and who stopped it? XR Faye calculated aloud. Human intervention reduced total loss projections by. Faye, Lisa smiled. Funny, your model said we'd die out there, yet here we are. She tapped the pad. And here is your problem, Kepler. Fabe's policy still lists the Zephyrian Mining Guild as beneficiaries, which means Krellick's exoskeleton rattled. You expect us to pay, after your species was blacklisted. You voided our coverage, Lisa said. But we just saved your investment. She nodded to the screens, where Blake's crew cheered as the reactor hummed back online. So pay up. The Vorak executives pulsed frantic colors, tendrils darting over terminals, One hissed. The claims are automated. If the colony stands, the payout triggers. Krelix slammed a fist down. Override it. Lisa crossed her arms. Try. The whole galaxy's watching. You really want to explain why you're stiffing the species that just saved $1 trillion credit asset? Silence. Then, with a sound like a dying engine, the central holoscreen flickered. Claim approved. The number that followed made even XR face stutter. Lisa didn't blink. Interest accrues at midnight. She turned for the door, then paused. Oh, and Krelix. The director looked up, dreading the answer. She grinned. Never bet against humans. Outside, the galactic news feeds were already blaring the headline, "Uninsurable humans collect biggest claim in Federation history," and in a smoky corner of the trade nexus, Marcus Cole raised a glass to the screens. Grix the bookmaker stared at his own datapad, tentacles limp. The odds had never been this bad. Marcus Cole's boots pounded against the polished Cententrum walkways, the neon glow of floating advertisements casting jagged shadows across his face. Behind him, the furious clicking of Zeperian debt collectors' exo-legs echoed through the market district. Grix the bookmaker slithered beside him, his 4 primary tentacles flailing in panic as secondary limbs clutched a datapad, flashing with rapidly escalating numbers. "You said outlier event," Grix screeched, his voice modulator crackling with stress. "Not statistically impossible." Marcus dodged around a startled Vorak merchant, sending a cascade of glowing credit, chits scattering across the walkway. "I told you humans specialize in impossible," he gasped, vaulting over a low railing into the spice market. The sudden shift from corporate sterility to the chaotic aroma of 100 alien cuisines made his eyes water. 3 Zeperians in collectors' harnesses skidded around the corner, their compound eyes locking onto their prey. The lead hunter raised a debt tally projector, its crimson beam painting Marcus's back with pulsing warning glyphs. "Human Cole, you are in violation of galactic gambling statute, Fabi." Grix whimpered as they ducked behind a stall selling live Grishnak eels. "I'm ruined." The odds were 1,000,000 to 1. Marcus grabbed a fistful of the bookmaker's vestigial limbs, dragging him deeper into the market's labyrinth. "You insured the entire Kepler system against human intervention," he hissed. "What did you think would happen when we intervened?" Above them, holographic news feeds flickered with footage from Kepler. Baby Captain Blake's scorched but triumphant crew emerging from the containment dome, the Zeperian salvage teams gaping in disbelief. The Chiron beneath flashed. "Human engineering defies all Federation safety models." A debt collector's stun, tendril lashed out, vaporizing a rack of crystallized Vexian fruits inches from Marcus's head. The merchant howled in protest, hurling a caustic fruit at their pursuers. Marcus used the distraction to shoulder through a curtain of beaded force field strands, emerging onto a suspended walkway overlooking Cententrum's central transit hub. Grix collapsed against a railing, his data pad now shrieking an alarm. The payout, it is cascading through every linked wager. The numbers kept climbing, flipping from red to gold as the system recognized the impossible outcome. "No species has ever triggered this many concurrent jackpots." Marcus grinned, watching the collector's bottleneck at the force field curtain. First time for everything. Below them, the transit hub erupted in chaos as news spread. A Tarkelian bond. Trader screamed as her human risk derivatives evaporated. A Vespidian actuarial drone short-circuited, spraying probability equations like confetti, and everywhere, the same stunned realization dawning. The models were wrong. Grix's ocular stalks trembled as he finally understood. You didn't just beat the odds. Marcus vaulted onto a passing cargo drone, pulling the bookmaker up as it accelerated toward the human embassy district. "We rewrote them." The debt collectors' enraged shrieks faded behind them, drowned out by the rising tide of panicked financial alerts across the galaxy. Somewhere in Risk Assessment Prime, Krelix was watching his empire crumble, and Marcus Cole, uninsurable human, was laughing all the way to the bank. The grand dome of the Federation Senate chamber hummed with tension. Delegates from 100 species shifted uncomfortably in their adaptive seating pods, their appendages and tendrils twitching as the massive overhead screens replayed footage of the Atlantica crew stabilizing the Kepler. Faye meltdown for the 17th time. The glow of the screens reflected off Lisa Hayes' sharp features as she stood at the central podium, her posture relaxed, but her eyes burning with quiet fury. The Zepyrian Insurance Guild representatives huddled together in their private balcony, their exoskeletons dull with stress fluid leaks. Director Krellick's mandibles clicked erratically as he scrolled through the cascading financial reports on his wrist. Display, every line item flashed red. Lisa tapped the podium's amplification node. The chamber's acoustics carried her voice like a blade. "Let's review," she said. "Your models said we were uninsurable, that humans were too reckless, too unpredictable." She gestured to the screens, where Captain Blake's crew was shown welding fractured reactor shielding, with nothing but a plasma torch and sheer stubbornness. "Yet, when your colony faced annihilation, it was our statistical nightmares who stayed behind." A murmuring ripple passed through the assembly. The Tarkelian trade envoys' frills flared in amusement, while the Cerelion delegation's floating orbs pulsed with reluctant acknowledgement. XR Faye, the Vorak insurance drone, hovered near the guild's balcony, its projection flickering as it attempted to recalibrate its argument. "The exclusion clause." It began. Lisa cut it off with a laugh. "Ah, right, the fine print. The part where you voided all human coverage right before the disaster." She tossed a data pad onto the Senate floor. It clattered, projecting a hologram of the Guild's own internal memos, timestamps showing the cancellation orders sent mere hours before the Kepler. "Faye, be alert." Krellick's forelimbs spasmed. "This is irrelevant. The risk assessment algorithms were wrong." Lisa finished. She leaned forward, bracing her palms on the podium. "You gambled that humans would die proving you right. Instead, we lived proving you stupid." Silence. Then, from the back of the chamber, a slow clap began. Marcus Cole, still slightly out of breath from his sprint through Cententrum's markets, strode down the central aisle. His jacket was torn from dodging Zepyrian debt collectors, but his grin was intact. "Beautifully put, Ambassador." He held up a credit. Chit Grix, the bookmaker's panic, signed payout, still glowing with transaction verification. "And since the Guild's own policies say they have to cover outlier events." He flicked the chit toward Krellick's. It landed at the director's feet. "Pay up." The screen switched to a live feed from Risk Assessment Prime. Clusters of Vorak underwriters were scrambling to lock down their terminals as a tidal wave of claims. Human claims flooded their systems. Not just for Kepler, Faye, but for a dozen other incidents across the Federation. A mining collapse on Draxus Faye, where human engineers had rerouted lava flows to save a city. A freighter caught in a pulsar's gravity, while its human navigators calculating an escape trajectory on paper when the computers failed. Lisa let the footage play. Then she straightened. "So here is the new deal," she said. "You wanted to cancel human coverage. Fine. But if you want our help, our miracles, you'll pay human rates." She tapped her wrist. A new set of numbers flashed across every screen in the chamber. The galactic delegates inhaled sharply. Even the Cerelian's orbs dimmed in shock. Krellick's made a wet, choking sound. "This is extortion." Marcus smirked. "No, extortion is what you tried. This," he gestured to the numbers, "this is just good business." The Tarkelian envoy suddenly stood, his frills vibrating with delight. "I'll take 10,000 shares in human risk bonds," he announced. Chaos erupted. Delegates surged toward the human embassy's aides, credit chits flashing as they tried to outbid each other for human, insured contracts. The Guild's balcony emptied as Krellick's and his executives fled, their exoskeletons clattering in panic. Lisa watched them go, then turned to Marcus. "Tell me you got the odds on this," he grinned. "Oh, you have no idea." And as the insurance guilds filed for bankruptcy, Humanity sent them a thank you note with a fey interest rate.